is the country that has hosts the largest number of this kind of contest. And here we are organizing the invitational contest. And now is the Shaolin Bao contest, and you could register yourself into the contest. In the Olympic Games and other international games, usually we could see the archery contest. So what is the difference between the international games and this traditional bao contest? Let's take a bao and have a look. This is a bamboo and wooden bao. This is in accordance with the request of the contest. For the traditional bao, usually they are bare baos. You don't have any other assistance devices, for example, the sighting device or the arrow rest with this bao is bare. For the modern bao, you have a lot of devices to help you to reduce the recoil and to help you to aim in a more precise way. However, here with the traditional bao, for the releasing, for the sighting, aiming, everything should be accomplished by yourself based on your experience and practices. China has the most enriched civilization of archery. China is a very vast country. We have a long history. In the country, we have so many ethnic groups. This is a monk from the Shaolin Temple. So the Chinese civilization, majorly represented by the Han ethnic group, has also included the cultures of other ethnic minorities. And from the archaeological studies, we have the most ancient discoveries of the archery in the Shuo district of Shanxi province. We have discovered the arrowhead. This is the most ancient object that we have discovered that is related to the archery practices. And China is a mainstream country for the practice of archery. We have also combined some animal parts, for example, the horn of the buffalo and the horn of the sheep, etc., to make the bao. Because if you add some part of the animals, like the horns, then the flexibility of the bao would be enhanced. That is how we make the traditional horn bao. We combine one part from the nature and one part from the animals. In ancient China, we have very detailed expertise and techniques to make the baos. It's like what we are doing now. It's exactly the same. And this is the recurve bao. We need a lot of time, a long circle of manufacturing for this bao. Now the participants, they should have a trial on their baos. We have 3 kinds of baos allowed for this contest. Some of the modern baos are also allowed. For example, the baos based on the fiberglass, because the fiberglass could help you to stabilize the performance. And we also have some traditional baos, the horn baos. It is more recommended to use the bamboo and wooden bao. In the ancient tombs, In the preliminary stage of the archery practices, people used bamboo and wooden bow. We put layers and layers of bamboo and wooden together. So all together, when we put the pieces, the thin pieces together to form this bow, then the performance of the bow could be strengthened. This is an important type of bow in China's archery history. That's why we are recommending people to use this kind of bow in their daily practices. Today, we put the modern recurve bow, the bamboo and wooden bow, and the horn bow, 3 kinds of bows together for this Shaolin bow contest. Just now, that bow used by the monk from the Shaolin temple is a kind of bamboo and wooden bow. And as I can observe, a lot of people are using the bamboo and wooden bow. It's not from a simple piece of wood, but it's by the composition of pieces and pieces of bamboo and wooden. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers together. We press them together to form this solid block. Some of these bows are made of bamboo and some others are made of wood. And in different parts of the bow, we use different materials. Because at different position, we need a special material to play their particular role. We use the glue water to add one piece to another, and according to the history, to make a good quality bow from preparation to manufacturing to delivery, we need 1 year in total. Now we have improved techniques of manufacturing. However, still, today, in modern time, it takes us about 10 to 20 days to make a very good quality, a fine bow, as we call it, for this competition. And the string, in traditional China, in ancient China, we have the silk to make the string. The recurve bow we are using today are introduced from the ethnic minority groups. They can even use other materials to make the string, like the leather. But today we are using the nylon. It's low cost and it's very performing. Now we are watching the National Traditional Bow Contest. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to list your question, ask it on our platform. After the trials, they need to retreat their own arrows. Let's go and have a look. It's a very interesting part. If you are good at retreating the arrow, then you could repeatedly use the arrow. And it's recommended to use the natural material arrows. So almost all the arrows used here are made of bamboo and wood. If you are getting your arrows out, you should stand by the left side or the right side of your arrow. You should not just stand in front of it. Because in ancient society, it is a tool, it's like an arm. If you don't stand by the side of the arrow, then it's very possible that you would be hurt when you are retreating this arrow out from the target sheet. This is a very beautiful corn bow. You should protect it from the sunshine. And in traditional China, you would apply a lot of protection, the protective measures. For example, you would paint your bow with the lacquer. And if it is a bow made in northern China and you start to use it in southern China, then you would feel a lot of difficulty because the humidity and other climate conditions vary a lot from the southern China and northern China. Usually it's much hotter in southern China. And it's also the same thing for a southern China-made bow to be used in northern China. Because it's usually very dry in northern China, if you use a southern bow there, there is a risk of breakdown of the bow or the change of the shape. Let me give you an example. Those are corn bows. This is Zhangbi, one of my good friends. I'd like to invite him to introduce to us the horn bow. The horn from the buffaloes. There are 3 layers. There's 1 layer of buffalo, 1 layer of bamboo, and 1 layer of lacquer. So 3 layers together. And by the 2 extreme ends of the bow, it's from wood. You can feel this part. And here, this part, this end part, with the main body part, they are connected in the traditional way. They are using the mortise and tenon joint. Does it mean that it's very difficult to put the string on the horn bow? Yes, exactly. Usually you need 2 people to collaborate in order to assemble the string with the bow. Yeah, it looks very pretty. This is an old bow or a young bow. Yeah, it's made 3 to 4 years ago only. If you can have a good maintenance of the bow, you could use it forever. When there is a problem of asymmetry, you could use heat to correct that problem. That is the difference from the traditional material and modern material. Sometimes with this traditional bow made of corn, it's hard for it to change the shape. And even though there's a little bit change of shape, you can use the heat to correct that. And this form of the bow is in the Turk style. And you know that Turkey is a country along the ancient Silk Road. That's why we share the same techniques of bow making. What about the strength of the bow, the distance it could cover? In the whole world, according to the historic record, the strongest one is from Turkey. In the written history, the longest distance could be realized by the bows from Turkey too. According to the statistics, at each lancing, 1 arrow from the bows of the Turkey could reach 1,000 meters. And over there, you can see a lot of very beautiful horn bows. They're still practicing, right? Now you could see a clear difference between different bows. Mr. Yi Wenyang. He is still sticking with the tradition of the archery from the Qing dynasty, the last imperial dynasty in China. You can see his equipment. All of them are made by himself. And he has exactly followed the style from the Qing dynasty. Now there's the wind. What is the impact of the wind on their archery contest? Usually we will not cancel the contest just because it's windy or it's raining. There's only one case. With a thunderstorm, you would stop the contest. When there is the wind, you have to adjust the position of the arrow in your hand, and you have to follow the rhythm of the wind. When there is strong wind, you should adjust the angle of the shooting. So everything should be based on the actual need during the competition. And you should not give a break whenever there is a wind, otherwise you cannot finish this simple task during one whole day. Good morning. So with you, it's a bow made in Qinghai province. Your bow in its size is a little bit smaller than the other bows. It's used in the Tibetan plateau. In the past, we used the bows to shoot on the back of the horse, but now it's used in a standing position. This is a not very old bow, but I've used one bow with 100-year history. There is a problem. Usually, you need to be very strong in order to use a long history, a very old bow. A big characteristic of the archery history of China. In the old times, the bows are very often used in battlefields, and is considered as a very powerful arm. And you need to practice a lot. If you don't practice, you cannot kill the enemies, and at the same time, it's very risky for you to use it because it's possible that you would hurt yourself. And you have to respect the rules of the practice of the shooting. If you don't use the resting of the arrows and you don't do the preparation before the shooting, then you would miss the target totally. It is a physical procedure. You have to have the accumulation of the energy at first, and then you would release the arrow. And if you don't do the preparation, it's also possible for the string to reverse, and once it's reversed, it would pop and hit your face. there's record in history that people who are not fully prepared for the releasing of the arrows, they are hurt by their own bows. And there's a question on our platform. For the animator, the fan of the bow shooting, if you don't know any basic knowledge about the archery or about the bows, what could we learn as a beginner? You should start with the history of the bow. You should know how it works. You should never aim your arrow at any human being, even it is a human being in the television. You should try to avoid this kind of aiming because it's a problem, it's an issue with your value. And then you should learn how to aim your arrow at the target. And when you are participating in this kind of contest, everyone should release their arrows at the same time. Actually, the bows are used in a way that is respective to the rules. It's not like the martial arts and other kinds of sports. We think it's the most elegant way of practice. You have a lot of traditional bow practicing stadiums and clubs. If you want to start, it's quite an easy job. However, if you want to improve and progress, then it will take you the whole lifetime. There's never an ending line. There's no finish line of this practice. In traditional society of China, if you want to form a gentleman, you would ask him to learn how to shoot with the bows. And there's a person in history saying that maybe I cannot do the farm work as good as well as a farmer. However, I know how to ride a horse-led car and I know how to shoot with the bows. And the scholar Wang Yangming in history, he has also written down a book on the rituals of the shooting of the bows. What are the rules to follow for the bows using? And for Confucius, he said that to reach the target is not the only objective, it's not the only aim. You should also consider the whole procedure. Today's children, they would like to dress up as the people in the Han Dynasty and they want to do cosplay. It's a good thing. And for the players in the game, for each person, they have different levels of energy. You cannot ask everybody to reach the center of the target sheet and to get the 10 rings. You should know at which point your strength is at. In the past, we would like to include the martial art of China into the Olympic Games. However, the foreigners, they could not understand the taolu, so the set of skills in the martial arts. So that's why it takes so much time for us to recommend the martial art into the total list of the Olympic Games. For the archery contest, it's very easy to read the results. You just count how many rings this player has reached and you know how wow it is. I think the archery practicing is also a good thing for the bodybuilding of the younger generation. In comparison with other countries in the world, the Chinese younger generation, their health status is not that satisfying. In such a contest, you have to develop a set of games in order to strengthen the bodies of the younger generation. In this case, the archery is one of the best choices. To learn the traditional bow practicing, it takes you only 1 month to know the basic skills and rules, and after 1 month of practice, you could feel that you have stronger muscles and stronger body. Is it your turn now? It is a typical modern bow. There are different layers. This is a layer of fiberglass. With the fiberglass, it's not easy for the bow to change the shape. But in general, it is a bare bow and it follows the shape of the traditional bow. You're a very handsome player of the bow. And there is a Shaolin bow. Many people do not understand what does it mean, the Shaolin bow. They think maybe it has adopted a new form. Actually, it's a new concept. By the Shaolin bow, we can set up a platform to advocate the practicing of Chinese traditional bow. In China, for a long period of time in history, we didn't have a unique platform for the advocating of traditional bows. The existing projects, they could not help to respond to the actual needs of the people. That's why the Shaolin Temple has initiated this Shaolin bow contest to show the spirit of Zen. And what is Zen? According to the Buddhist abbots, you have to be very calm in your spirit. You should care about the people around you, and you should not have all kinds of unnecessary ideas. You should be focused on your tasks. In the Shaolin martial arts, we have observed a lot of high experts on the practicing of martial arts. And in the record of the archery practicing in traditional China, a lot of them come from the Shaolin Temple. That's why we think it's quite natural for the Shaolin Temple to organize this Shaolin bow contest. There's the Institute of Zen Bao from Shaolin Temple. This is the Shaolin Temple from Zhangbi Ancient Castle area. It's constructed inside the Zhangbi Ancient Castle. The person in charge is a Buddhist abbot of the Shaolin Temple in the Zhangbi Ancient Castle. It's the first time for us to have an organized platform to advocate traditional bow. They have demonstration, they have researches in the scientific way, and they also have the training for the animators of the bows. Starting by March until yesterday, everything has been accomplished in such a short period of time. Why we have chosen the Zhangbi Ancient Castle to hold this event? And Zhangbi Ancient Castle is a very representative place in China. This castle itself protects a famous person. It's called Luo Diao Du Du. He's buried here. And underground, you have a lot of tunnels. That's why it is a very strong castle for self-defense. That is Yongxing, the Buddhist abbot. And here it reads the Institute of Zen Zen Bows of Shaolin. In traditional China, for the practices of the bows, they have a specific practicing field. In traditional China, to learn in a school, they have the private schools. And in private schools, usually it's equipped with a shooting field. It is a way to advocate the sports and encourage people to exercise. However, according to the Confucius culture, it is better to stay calm instead of moving around and doing sports. That's why the Chinese people, generations after generations, they have lost their physical energy in a great sense, and they are reluctant to move and to do the sports. Only few people could grow a habit of practicing the sport. That's why later we have established this field for the shooting of the barrels. In traditional China, during a long history of time, the literals, they look down upon the players of the martial arts. In Japan, just on the contrary, they have a very strong feeling for the bow practicing, and they have attached great importance, and they have added their own understanding on the Zen into the practice of the bows. In Japan, they have developed a very high-end range of bow activities, and in South Korea, they have also different clubs for the practices of the bows. But they only practice at a certain distance, which is 140 meters. When you visit those clubs of the practices of the arrows in South Korea, you would feel very familiar, and you would also feel quite pity that we Chinese people have nearly lost this tradition of the practices of arrows. However, in other neighboring countries, they have kept the tradition. That's why today, based on these platforms set up by the Shaolin Temple and the organization of the Shaolin Bow Contest, we need to combine the reflections, the researches, the trainings, and the promotion of the traditional bow practices in China. As an ordinary tourist, could you have some experience and have a try on the bows here in the Zen Bow Institute? Yes. You can learn a lot of new things about these bows. Here is a small museum. And they are very generous to present so many treasury and precious bows from the Shaolin Temple. And there are also the copies of the ancient bows. Those are the 20 bows invited and borrowed from the Shaolin Temple. Most of them come from the Qing dynasty by the end of the Ming dynasty and the beginning of the Qing dynasty. Could we still use them now? The most developed ones and the practical ones, they are from the Qing dynasty, and also the books and other publications about the making of the bows, they are also dating back to the Qing dynasty. because it is during the Qing dynasty that we have made the largest number of publications on the bao using and bao making, and it's also in the same dynasty that we have practiced most often this activity. In earlier days in the Tang dynasty, there is a book about the utilization of the baos, the techniques of the practice. And in the book of the Tang dynasty, they even compare the continental Chinese bao practice with the other neighboring countries from the ethnic minority groups. 20 years ago in the Tinjiao area, you could still find this kind of bao. And during the traditional exam for the university entrance, this is a subject that you need to pass. By the two ends, two pieces of the horn of the buffaloes. So these are the two horns. As we have seen in the very beginning of our program, we have seen a gentleman holding a horn bao that is made to connect the end with the main body of the bao. You need the mortise and the talon joint, the traditional Chinese connection method. It is very complicated in the manufacturing of this bao, and if you're using it in a very careful way, it would last for more than 200 years or even reach 400 years. The tests on the baos. What is it for? To choose the soldiers, the martial officials, military officials, you have to show off your physical strengths with the bao, or you can use a very big block or piece of stone to show your strength. For people who are practicing the traditional martial arts of China, you could see the body parts in the form of the baos, and it means that you have a very strong body and you have a lot of strength. There's a traditional saying which goes like you could open 5 baos at the same time, and this shows that this person is really strong in his body. One bao with one arm and 2 other baos opened by your feet and one last by your teeth. These are the spanners made of crystals and stones and other metal also. People from the Manchu, from the Man minority ethnic group, they are fond of the wearing of the spanners. Those are the objects discovered from the archaeological researches. And with the arrow head, you could add up some other devices so you could carry the flames, fire with the arrow. It would be more powerful in the attacks. It's very interesting. And these are the traditional and ancient arrowhead, and also the arrow from Japan. This is a bamboo arrow. All the bamboos from Japan, they are made of bamboo. But in China, we have different materials to make the arrows. Usually the materials for the making of the arrows would vary from regions. You usually would use the most abundant materials in your region to make the arrows. In history, before sending a troop to the battlefield, you have to take a long period of time for the preparation, because for the arrows it takes you a lot of time to manufacture. You cannot just send them at the first thought. You have to prepare it a few months ago. This is the person in charge for the Institute, the Buddhist Abbot. This is the inner court of our institute. Usually it's not recurring in a large sense. So I'm attaching the string to the bow. You have to feel the bow to check on it to see whether it has a change in the form, and you have to try a little bit with the string to see whether it's fixed in the correct position. What is the cost of the making? It's not a very special bow, so the cost is reasonable. Usually it would cost from 200 yuan to 1,000 yuan. But I don't recommend you to buy a very cheap bow. think it's no good in using these cheap bows. If you just want a bow for decoration, it's okay. But if you want to release the arrows, you should think of the security factors. Is it hard to open the bow? No. You could have a try. First, you should not open it towards. You should not aim it at other people, and you could pull it until your ear position. When you are opening a bow, it's the muscles on your back that are working. To detach the ring, the string is the same thing. For ancient Chinese people, after the shooting, you have to release, you have to detach the string. You could not let the string in tension. Some of the bows are put here. These are the bows for the group of the referees.
好，那么今天呢，我们